And it is our people who suffer, our people in whose name and for whom we have the judiciary are the ones who suffer from denial of justice. Similarly, Your Excellency, it is our recommendation that every constituency must have at least one magistrate grade 1. Allow me to say this, and fortunately the Honorable Speaker of Parliament is here. How come it is easy to create a constituency with the stroke of a pen, and it is near impossible to appoint a magistrate grade 1 to operate in that constituency? The High Court establishment must be commensurate with the population of an area and the geographical challenges. Taking justice to the people must urgently be accorded the importance that has seen the provision of access to safe water to the grassroots, health centers at the parish, sub-county, county, and district level. Your Excellency, in case you are not aware, one of your greatest achievements, which you've been very passionate about right from 1986, was the provision of safe water. Allow me to remind you, your water for bathing, and I think you took long attending to some other people. When you went there, you found that there was a state capture. The bees had captured your water and you were not able to use. That was in Adilang. This was because it would take people, some people up to 10 kilometers to get safe water. But since then, and if you care to go to Adilang again tomorrow and sleep in the bush, as you have done the other day, you will not now compete with bees because they have sufficient water all around. Similarly, I grew up believing that there was a health center only at the county headquarters. Now, when I go home, I find a health center at the parish level. The issue whether there are drugs sometimes or not is a different matter, but there is a health center at the parish level. And then there is a health center 3 at the sub-county level, and a health center 4 at the county level, and a hospital at the district level. Your Excellency, your next task is to ensure that people can walk 5 kilometers to find a courthouse. Not 40 kilometers, not 60 kilometers, but it should be as easy as going to fetch water, or as easy as going for medication, at least at the sub-county level, at least at the constituency level. We do understand you probably can't build a courthouse near every water, build a courthouse and avail a magistrate in every constituency. So that whenever the people of Uganda, I don't know, say we want 700 constituencies, the Chief Justice of Uganda says, I'm so fortunate because I will also have 700 magistrates grade 1. And the people who reap the benefit are our own people. All this point is not for the Chief Justice. I am passionate about it, Your Excellency, because I am a villager. I grew up deep in the villages, and I know what it is not to have safe water near, not to have a center of medication near, not to have a center for adjudication of disputes nearby. I understand properly, and I speak about it so passionately, because I am here as Chief Justice, but the village has never left me. I feel very strongly for the village where I grew up. So, as a point of beginning, Your Excellency, Parliament was 426 members. I'm told the next Parliament will have 520 members. We would be happy if we recruit additional magistrate grade 1 to match the 520 members so that each constituency has a magistrate grade 1. You know, and I'm using Parliament because it is a sister arm of government. The judiciary compares favorably with Parliament. I can understand. I wouldn't say the executive gets this and the judiciary should get this. I would be unrealistic because the executive is a wide, huge branch of arm of government. When you take the legislature, Your Excellency, it is actually not the 426 members currently, or it will not be the 520 members in the next Parliament. No. The legislature in this country includes district councillors and sub-county or town council or other lower local government councils. So you have a situation where in this country, the legislature is over 1,000 people, and they serve the people effectively. I think, as head of the judiciary, I'm not asking too much. If I say, look, because to serve the people effectively, the legislature needs numbers. I think I'm not saying what is good for the goose must certainly be good for the gander. And the gander is the judiciary. That we must have a refocusing of our thinking. We must search our collective souls and say, this is what we should have done, we did not. We must do it now. I've just said, Your Excellency, that in this country, if your case takes 2 years, more than 2, if a case takes in court more than 2 years, then the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, the Principal Judge, and the Chief Registrar must be concerned. Why has it taken more than 2 years? 2 years a case takes. One of your investors, Your Excellency, comes, acquires land in Mukono. Well, no, the land you bought is not for the other person, is mine. Wait for 2 years to lock his investment, to lock his funds, probably bank money? Nobody. Because we're talking about 2 years because I have only 50 judges to handle matters that the investor would be interested in. For a population of 45 million, 50 judges. Parliament, and again I thank you, Honorable Speaker, was generous to come up with a resolution that the High Court of Uganda should be manned by 82 judges, which of course will not be enough, but it will be a step in the right direction. We've been having an incremental recruitment of about 10 or thereabout judges every year. But for every 10 judges that we recruit every year, Your Excellency, we take about 5 or 6 to replace those who retire. In effect, we have not been recruiting 10, we've been recruiting 4 or 5. with minimal impact in the delivery of justice. My predecessor in office, the Honorable Chief Justice Katurebe, now emeritus, visited Malaysia, Southeast Asia. I think Malaysia is one of those countries that was called, one of those countries of Asia called economic tigers. He visited his counterpart to understand how they operate. At the time he went, Malaysia had a population of 30 million. Uganda had 40 million. He was concerned about case backlog, how to handle it. So the Chief Justice of Malaysia told my predecessor in office that for us, if a case takes more than 8 months in court, the Chief Justice must be very, very interested, must really be concerned. The equivalent of the principal judge must really be concerned. More than 8 months? How? So the judicial officer would be taken to task to give an explanation in writing. And if the explanation is not sufficient, there would be sanctions. Then the Honorable Chief Justice Katurebe said, oh, how many High Court judges do you have? Say, I have 150 judges for High Court alone, leave alone the appellate courts, and close to 1,000 magistrates. Then he turned to my good friend and predecessor, immediate predecessor. How about you? Said, I have about 50 High Court judges. So, oh, do you have a small population of about 10 million? He said, no, I actually have a population of 40 million for 50 judges. Then the Chief Justice of Malaysia said, how do you do it? I don't know if Justice Katurebe could have an answer. Because the truth is that we don't do it. If we did it, and I stand very firm, the courts of law, Your Excellency, you know this very well, are not courts of statistics. They are courts of justice. We could actually, even with 10 judges, finish all the cases. But that would mean I look at you, I look at the other person and say, you have won, you have lost, and in 1 month the cases are all finished. That is not justice. A judge must ponder. A judicial officer must argue with himself or herself. Again, I'll use the example you're familiar and very competent in. You will not rush to Nakawa because an army has attacked Nakawa. You'll first of all sit down and say, how do we move? What do we do? Probably your response, if the attack was in the morning, might take 2 or 3 hours. Because you have to plan. You have to read the mind of the enemy. Similarly with judgment writing, which is the most difficult part of adjudication. You have to sit, you have to analyze, you have to speak with yourself. Many times we disagree with our own selves. I hold this view and then I put it aside and say, no, it cannot be that, it must be this. And then we come to a conclusion. So if we have to do true justice, the solution lies in appointing judicial officers commensurate with the population of this country, commensurate with the economic activity in this country, which, Your Excellency, you are responsible for. You are responsible for the enhanced economic activities in this country. Please, we beseech you, we appeal to you that, Your Excellency, now complete the circuit so that that economic activity can be sustained, so that we do not go back to where we came from. Funding. Until the enactment of the Judiciary Administration Act, the judiciary was, for all intent and purposes, a department under the Ministry of Justice. First of all, it was unlawful, it was unconstitutional, but that is how we have operated since 1995 and before. Despite the clear provision in the Constitution to the contrary. And because of that, for the past 5 years alone, the budget of the judiciary, and this is really important, and I will dwell on this, the budget of the judiciary has always been around 0.5, many times below that, 0.5% of the national budget. Now, look at my sister arm of government, the parliament. I think if we were to swap positions with my sister, the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, she comes and heads the judiciary, I go and head parliament, I would put on weight in 1 week. And because, Your Excellency, for the period I'm talking about, the budget of Parliament was 1.69% of the national budget. That is 3.8 times that of the judiciary. We all know what Parliament does. We all know what the judiciary does. I ask the question, does Parliament carry out responsibility which is 3.8 times that of the judiciary? If we are enjoined to carry equal task, then it follows logically that the budget of the judiciary must be at par with that of Parliament, so that we can, as effectively as Parliament carries out its responsibility, do ours. All that we are asking for is equity, equitable treatment, considering our constitutional mandate. Now, because of lack of manpower, Your Excellency, you champion economic development. You've actually seen rise in economic development in this country. The evidence is everywhere. But the judiciary that should have made it possible for that economic development, economic growth to be more than 10 times what it is disabled from doing so because of lack of manpower and lack of funds. As I speak now, Your Excellency, in the commercial court division alone, we have courts in divisions, and then we have, in the military, we would call them other outposts or something. The divisions are in Kampala. There's a commercial division of the High Court, leave alone these courts in Barara, in Gulu, in Mbale, in Kampala. Just one court, one division, one department of the High Court has locked in it over 3 trillion shillings. Your Excellency, I don't know how many zeros accompany the 3. I don't know how to write. I stop in billion, but I don't know how many zeros. But I know trillion is a lot more than billion. It is there. The evidence is there. What I'm saying is from research. Fortunately, the research was not carried by the judiciary. Otherwise, you would accuse me of bias. I think it was carried by Bankers Association. That there is money that could be released into our economy and make tremendous difference. It is just locked up there. Why? Because I have only 5 High Court judges to handle cases in the commercial division. And as I speak, there are 5,100 cases which are unresolved. When you swore me in, you remember, Your Excellency, I said, give me 15 judges for the commercial division of the High Court alone. Then you ask me after 6 months that what is the situation that now obtains in that commercial division of the High Court. I made that request. I think I challenged you. I don't know whether it was a challenge or a request. It was a challenging request, I think. Because that is the way to go. If we have the judicial officers, and for me, having been a practicing advocate, a trial judge, an appellate judge, and now head of the Judiciary of Uganda, if we have the manpower, if we have the judicial personnel, it is possible for the people of Uganda to file their case on the 1st of January and be out of court by the 31st of December of the same year. It is possible. But we've got to make hard decisions. I'm aware we're operating under competing demands. I'm not blind to this. But we have to make hard decisions. Either we give justice to our people as a token, or we give real justice. Of course, judicial officers, the majority operate in their private vehicles for those who are fortunate enough to come from families where their parents bought for them vehicles. We have judicial officers who go to court on border, Your Excellency. And I think I commend those because they're not pretending. They don't have the means to acquire a car. Your Excellency, the other time I was reading, and I'm going to pester my sister so that she can support me. The other time I was reading that in the budget for the next financial years, those who are going to come to Parliament, within a month, they will each have a vehicle. When you appoint a judge of the High Court, or even of the Supreme Court, in August of a given year, that judge has to wait for the next financial year to get a vehicle. This I speak on what I have seen with my own eyes. I think there is need for equity. And we can only do this if we open our minds to the importance of the judiciary in the scheme of things. If we stop looking at the judiciary as a consumer institution, if we appreciate, we accept that the judiciary, like Parliament, like the executive, contributes massively to the economic growth and development and the maintenance of security in this country. Your Excellency, we in the judiciary profusely appreciate and thank you for your personal intervention, which has ensured that work is now going on for the construction of the Supreme Court, the tower that's now coming up, and the Court of Appeal, the other side, which is just emerging from the ground. Your Excellency, you may not know this. Beginning next week, the Supreme Court of Uganda will commence hearing an election, a presidential election petition, where one of the contestants is aggrieved and has taken a number of people to court. I know we will selflessly and with utmost fairness handle this petition as with other things we've done before. But the one thing you need to know, the courtroom for the Supreme Court, and this applies to many, I was in the Court of Appeal, it applies to many other courts. The courtroom, which was fabricated because that is a rented property, it's not property of the government of Uganda. It's not a normal court premise. The courtroom is not sufficient to seat 9 justices while following social distancing. So the Supreme Court of Uganda will, beginning next week, for the next 45 days or thereabout, sit in a tent to determine that grievance and bring closer to the issue of presidential election. In a tent. Another country in Africa where the sun sets, called the Republic of Ghana, is also conducting presidential election petition. And for those of you who have time, I think if you have DSTV, go to channel 421. 421 or 420. And you see the citadel of justice in Ghana. Where the justices of the Supreme Court operate from. Your Excellency, let me give you this example. I was supposed to start my primary from a nearby bush school, this parent school, because my place was slightly far away from the mission school, which eventually I attended. Even as a young child, I refused. I said, but how can I come from a grass-thatched house and go and learn in a grass-thatched house? When I go to church, I see the school so beautiful. So I refused. It was intransigence. My father supported me. How can we render justice in a tent? This is a question we've got to ask. How can we render justice in hired premises all over the country? We must ask these questions. We must find solutions. I know the solutions will not be given in a day or in a year or two, but I think we must make a move in the right direction for the good of our people. In the year 2020, the judiciary achieved a number of things. It achieved the enactment of the Administration of Judiciary Act, for which, Your Excellency, I have thanked you. I've thanked the Speaker of Parliament. And let me add my good friend, the Honorable Oboth of Legal and Parliamentary. I'm told he is here. Your Excellency, we need such type of people in Parliament. I wouldn't say this if he was still contesting, because then they would say I'm campaigning for him. Because Honorable Oboth spent endless times coming to the judiciary to meet the Chief Justice, to meet me, to meet top management on what we need to do. And that's how we should operate as arms of government. So he made a huge contribution to the attainment of this piece of legislation. There are a number of things which the Judiciary, the Administration of Judiciary Act accords us. I've listed them down here. What remains is now implementation. And this will change the face of the judiciary of Uganda. We have introduced special court sessions to target areas where there's serious problems. We have introduced alternative dispute resolution, ADR, and this is in keeping with the African tradition. The African jurisprudence, the African adjudication mechanism has always not been about winning and losing. The African tradition is about what can we take from you, what can we take from the other person and put together, and what do we put aside from you and from the other person. At the end, you came to the mediation center not talking to one another. At the end, you go back home chatting. You can even branch in a bar and take a glass and then continue home. That is not possible under the system of adjudication, which we borrowed from the colonial masters. So we are promoting and we give opportunity to the parties to talk under a mediator. And many times they find solutions. For example, 5,838 cases have been resolved under the year in review. We have also, even when the trial court said the High Court has already decided you've lost, you've won, and the matter goes on appeal, we still promote mediation because it brings harmony in society. We all know there is nothing worse than losing. Nobody enjoys losing. But in mediation, even the loser is given a soft landing. We have seriously taken information and communication technology because that's the way to go. We have introduced electronic court case management information system, ECMIS, and around March or thereabout, we are going to begin rolling out to the pilot scheme areas, and then subsequently we will roll it to the whole country. We have introduced and are now practicing video conferencing, trial by video conferencing. Well, because of COVID-19 pandemic, the remand prisoner, the appellant, is in either Luzira or Kitalia, and the court sits here and a decision is made. That expedites the hearing while safeguarding all of us from this pandemic. We are enhancing our court recording and transcription system. I remember when, much earlier, I was not even a Deputy Chief Justice, we came to you in Entebbe, Your Excellency. You were shocked to learn that judges would still be writing, taking evidence, looking at the demeanor of the witness and also writing. You said, no. You said, for you in the military, the commander must not be bogged down by driving or doing other things, because even when he's traveling, he must be planning. We've taken the cue. We're bolstering our information and communication technology to enable the judicial officer to concentrate on the witness, to follow. Somebody else will transcribe. That way we expedite hearing. A hearing that would take 3 months can take 3 weeks. So this is the way to go, and that's what we're pursuing. Allow me to recognize and hail my predecessors in office. Because the appellate courts, because the judiciary has never had appellate courts. At one time, we were tenant of the Kingdom of Buganda in Mengo. Then we were tenant of some businessman on Parliament Avenue. And then now we are a tenant of some whether businessman or investor, I don't know who, in Kololo. It was Honorable Chief Justice Wambuzi. It was Honorable Chief Justice Wambuzi who brought up the idea and pushed for the need to have appellate courts. This was taken up by Honorable Justice Odoki, Chief Justice, and the realization came during the Chief Justiceship of Bat Katurebe. I recognize them. We are indebted to them for what is being realized now. It's like the planting of the coconut tree. You may not eat of it. It may not begin fruiting during your lifetime, but you do it for posterity and for society. Your Excellency, among the things we have introduced in the judiciary is our self-assessment. It's no longer business as before. Each one of us must be assessed, from the grade 2 magistrate who is still in service to the Chief Justice. So we will operationalize the performance management tool, a tool to find out, are we doing what is required of us? Are we operating at full capacity? If not, where is the problem? For a long time, peasants, especially peasants, have been evicted from their land by sharks. Now, the judiciary has come up with a practice direction. The Constitution, Land Evictions Practice Directions of 2021. It's going to be a little difficult even for someone who has got a court judgment to just walk there and evict a single person. Because the rules are so stringent that if in the end there is an eviction, we know that all safeguards have been taken care of. Because there must be protection of property rights and the interests of landowners. In conclusion, Your Excellency, we appreciate that which we are asking for is multiple and varied. But this is because for a long time, this has not been done. Your Excellency, I ask that you give the judiciary an appointment, you give us audience to present to you our budget proposal, because the law now says the Chief Justice presents the judiciary's budget to the President of the country. We'll look at it with these technocrats and then presents it to the Speaker of Parliament with his comments on whatever we put. Your Excellency, the law does not allow you to change even a punctuation from what I'm going to present to you, because it is my document. But the law says you don't just present it like a blind man. You can tear it apart with your own remarks. That is allowed. And then ultimately it will be the Speaker of Parliament and our team to deal with the issue of appropriation. So I'm asking that you kindly give me an urgent appointment so that we can have this out of the way. We are ready. If you would be pleased to see me tomorrow, I would certainly appear with my team before you. A transformed judiciary will render service to Uganda. Your Excellency, let me end on this note. You've done so much for this country. There was a general, there was a genius, a military genius in Europe in the 18th and 19th century. End of the 18th, spilling over into the 19th century. You can't do European history without studying him at great length. He was a Corsican known as Napoleon Bonaparte. He was taken to exile at St. Helena, directly opposite Angola in the Atlantic Ocean. So in his memoirs, and people have been asking him, so he says, we've been asking him, what is his most important legacy? Transformation of warfare, mechanization. What was it? The revolution of war? You say, no. Everything that I achieved through what you call military genius was swept aside by Waterloo. It's not important anymore. But what will live forever is called Napoleon. Much of Europe today, Your Excellency, applies law which is based on the Code Napoleon. You went to the bush in 1981. What drove you to the bush was principally to see that in this country there's rule of law. The law is respected. People can live in peace and harmony. Indeed, we've come a long way, as I've said before. In my very humble view, the missing link in your revolutionary journey is focusing on the role of the judiciary to complete that circuit. That's the only way we are going to have a sustainable peace, sustainable economic development, and sustainable stability. We have every faith, Your Excellency, that you will take the lead in this humble plea from the head of the judiciary of the Republic.